everyone from BudoTV. I am Datu Tim Hartman from the World Modern Arnis Alliance, and I am visiting Brazil teaching the Praces family systems. I want to thank BudoTV for giving me the opportunity to talk a little about what we're doing. So really quick, I'm from Buffalo, New York. That's near Niagara Falls, Canada, nowhere near New York City. I started in Filipino martial arts, and the first style I started was Modern Arnis. It was at the Filipino Karate Academy. I was 19 years old. A couple years after that, Professor Praces took me on as a personal student, and from there I traveled the country, Canada, and Europe with him. Through that, he had offered me the opportunity to train other systems. I got involved with Balintawak Eskrima, with Ted Buat, who was the person who would teach for Anchan Bacan, the founder, when he wasn't in the club. When I do my Filipino research, it's about all the arts that contributed to the development of Modern Arnis, or arts that came about it off of there. One of which those arts was Ernesto Praces' system of combatan. There's the three Praces brothers, Remy, Ernesto, and Roberto. I've friends with all of them. Unfortunately, Roberto is the last one who is still surviving. We do visit him when we're in the Philippines, but each brother had their own respective system. Remy created Modern Arnis, Ernesto created combatan, and Roberto created Hinigran, their hometown, Arnis de Mano. What I liked about the family system is, in addition to doing the weapon training, a lot of it translates to open hand combatives. And in today's world, what I find for self-defense needs are unarmed responses to people, whether they have weapons or they're unarmed. As far as what we do in the World Modern Arnis Alliance, we try to preserve the system as best we can, teaching new innovations, but still keeping the foundations and the concepts of what we do. I do this as a full-time business. I travel the world spreading the art. I've taught this is my 18th country, and we have schools around the world that are carrying on the legacy of Professor Praces. Okay, so as far as my time with Grandmaster Praces, or as he preferred to go by, Professor Praces, you know, words can't put into, you can't put this into words. He is a one-of-a-kind person. It's more of a feel, but he taught more seminars than anyone else. He lived down the road for years at a time. Working with him, developing the art, you know, watching what he did, he had this 2 programs, and it was actually all one program. He taught his martial art to us, and he let people do 2 paths. One path was the art within your art, and the other art was a standalone program. I was very fortunate to learn this as a standalone program. So I started in Modern Arnis. I didn't have a karate or taekwondo background. This is my first art. So my expression is different than a lot of my classmates. So the art within your art, what Professor Praces would do is show you how to enhance your primary martial system without compromising the integrity of that base system. So he would use this as an enhancement or an enrichment, and each student would then do their own interpretation of the art within your art. But when Professor taught, he taught one system, his system, the family system. Modern Arnis was the same formula to everybody, no matter whether you were going to do this as a standalone program or as in the art within your art. But like I said, he encouraged stylistic interpretation. So if you were a karate person, you would look a little more karate-esque. If you did jiu-jitsu, you'd have a lot more locks and throws in there, and so on and so forth. Okay, so what is the Modern Arnis symbol, the logo? What does it mean? So first of all, we start with the colors. It's the Filipino flag. So red, white, blue, and gold. When you see the yellow star, that's the sun from the Filipino flag, which represents the original 8 provinces that revolted in the Philippines. When you look at the middle, you're going to see a diamond shape of arms with sticks and swords in them, and that represents the weave, or the sinwali. It also, with the square that it makes, talks about or represents the angular versus the circular attacks. Now, as far as the World Modern Arnis logo goes, we have the same sun, but we've painted it black because we're mourning the loss of our teachers of Remy and Ernesto. The triangle represents the 3 brothers, Remy Praces, Ernesto Praces, and Roberto Praces. You'll see a warrior European type sword in the middle. That represents the warrior spirit, but more importantly, the non-Filipino systems that influenced the development of their art. The Spaniards occupied the Philippines for 400 years, so obviously dealing with that changed their martial systems. Professor Praces studied other systems. Probably the 3 most influential systems, in my opinion, was Shotokan Karate, which is where the development of belt structure and uniform comes from, and it influenced the development of our forms. Small circle jiu-jitsu, Remy Prasis was best friends with Wally J, and a lot of that influenced the way we do our techniques. And then he was good friends with George Dillman, with Ryuka Kempo, and he used a lot of Mr. Dillman's applications of the kata to take the forms and take that to that next level. Balintawak. Well, that is a big, so Balintawak Eskrima is probably the biggest influence on the art, but Balintawak is a Filipino system. So Remy Prasis traveled the Philippines as a teenager, studying with everyone he could, building his own martial synthesis, like Jeet Kune Do, but before Jeet Kune Do. He created Modern Arnis in 1957, and the last art he trained before forming Modern Arnis, Balintawak Eskrima, founded by Anchan Bakan. And the way the name came about was that it was on it was the Balintawak School of Self-Defense. The school was on Balintawak Street. That's where the name comes. It's not the cry of Balintawak, but it was, you're the Balintawak School of Self-Defense guys, the Balintawak School of Self-Defense, you're those Balintawak guys. So that was a single stick system that Anchan Bakan was the founder of. Now, he was a student of the Saavedra brothers and did Doce Pares. And when the Saavedras were killed during World War II, he opened up a club after World War II. The Doce Pares, usually a stick and dagger, and all the techniques he was doing was single stick, because when he was doing Doce Pares, he would stab people with it. Eventually, he stabbed them so hard, they took the training knife away. Training knife, not a real one. But then the development of saying you would take a stick in one hand and a knife in another, and you would do this movement to open things up, which is very hard with small things like this, but then the hand would do the same thing. In my opinion, that's when Balintawak started, and it got its name when it moved to Balintawak Street. Professor Prasis was one of Anchan Bakan's top fighters in the club, and actually would fight and represent the club. And eventually he moved back to his home in Negros. When he left, he had an understanding with Anchan Bakan that he would teach the material of Balintawak inside of Modern Arnis, but because it was a blend, he wouldn't use the Balintawak name because it wouldn't be an accurate representation of what Anchan Bakan was teaching. And depending on what era of training you were, I was very fortunate. The professor would teach more Balintawak in the early 80s, and I was exposed to that. Later, he went in a little different direction with the material, because Balintawak's not an easy art to teach. And then later he started going back into that. But when you look at the angles of attack, a lot of the disarm, stuff of that nature, I see that it all comes from Balintawak, because once again, Professor Prasis opened the door for me to train privately with Anchan Bakan's top student, Ted Buat. Okay, so what is Modern Arnis? The core concepts of Modern Arnis, which we need to preserve so that the future generations could get, would be our core, would be our block check counter. From there, the striking styles that build off of that. You would do the trapping hands decadita, which is related to the block check counter. Our Sinawalis, which give us phenomenal flow drills. And then making sure that we're grafting in all the locks and controls that Professor would do. And then more importantly, which a lot of people forget because they usually come from another art, is the open hand interpretation of all these moves. I'm a little picky on Modern Arnis practitioners because I see the value of the art. And a lot of people don't do this as a standalone program. So Professor would teach the art within your art to get to more schools, to more people. But there was only a handful of us that actually did it as a standalone art. And I think it's important for the future generations that more people try to embrace doing it as a standalone, or what they're going to get is an art that is going to have the flavor of other things and not its original flavor. So we don't want to mix we want to encourage how it can blend with other systems to enhance, but we still need to have that original source material to carry on for future generations so it doesn't lose its signature, its movement. And so when we see a Modern Arnis practitioner, it goes, that's a Modern Arnis person.
Hello, BudoTV. PJ Craig Mason here. I'm here in Brazil, experiencing the beauty and the culture of the area, but my main focus is actually to teach and train for our instructor developmental program. My start is basically in the early 80s. I started in Goju Karate, because Sudbury, Ontario, Canada, where I'm from, is basically a karate town. So pretty well most of the schools there, that's all there was. So it was either karate, taekwondo, and there was a couple judo schools. So I started in an old school Goju system. After training for close to 20 years, I got exposed to FMA in the late 90s through basically a mutual friend. So in 1999, while at the local store, picked up a Black Belt magazine. There was an advertisement for Professor Remy in Toronto, Ontario, Canada, which is about a 4.5 hour drive south of where I live in Sudbury. I was there. All right, so I went down and I got a chance to meet Professor Remy. And at the same time, I got to meet my teacher, Datu Tim Hartman. And from there, basically, I was sold. Okay, felt comfortable. And then I continued on that art up until this day. And now I'm here actually sharing basically our art in Brazil. So coming from a karate and basically boxing background, the way I moved with the stances, that was something that Modern Arnis really appealed to me. I had an opportunity to train in a few different arts that just didn't kind of fit how I moved. Well, Modern Arnis, the commonality in the movements, the commonality in how the techniques are done, it was something that I could relate to from my background from the early 80s, starting in karate. So it was something that I was just sold on, and it felt and it fit me the way I moved, and it helped me actually enhance on my core system, just like it's always explained, the art within your art. But over time, I actually did the complete transition to doing Faixa Preta full-time, because that's where I felt at home. So back in '99, when I had the fortune to actually meet Professor Remy, as well as meeting my teacher, Datu Tim Hartman, after I left the seminar, I started looking around in Canada, where can I actually train? Where can I actually basically learn more Modern Arnis? I did meet a gentleman in London, Ontario, for a short bit. We were training together, but it was in 2005 I actually became a personal student of Datu Tim Hartman. And very shortly after that, I actually became a registered member of the WMMA, World Modern Arnis Alliance. And then after I became the first certified school in Canada to actually be able to propagate the art and expand the art. Down south where I live, which Toronto area, which is about 4 or 5 hours, there are some FMA schools, but I'm in the northern part of Ontario. There's no FMA schools at all. I'm the only actually school right now, and now through my work and expansion in Ontario, we actually have 3 certified schools up north right now. So one of the things that really attracted me to the World Modern Arnis Alliance and training under Datu Tim is his openness at cross-training in other arts to help your base system in Modern Arnis. I'm Faixa Preta, Modern Arnis, through the core, just the way I move, I feel comfortable. But through cross-training, it gives me some ideas how to make what I do better. One of the things I got a chance to meet is a gentleman down in Toronto who's part of the Dog Brother clans. He does Dog Brother martial arts and fighting. In 2009, I had a chance to attend a camp, and we became very close friends. And ever since then, I've been actually going to their events, their gatherings, to test my material. And one of the things that I focus on is looking at our base material in Modern Arnis. Because you look at a lot of the core drills, okay, your solo baston tappy tappy, your block check counter, your sombrada, your palis, all those have very solid building blocks to be able to use in a random aggressive setting, such as a gathering. And a gathering is basically a fight, okay, between 2 people that you agree upon how you're going. So we would both fight single stick, and then we would fight for that specific time frame. And then by using my material, I can test it. Instead of just swinging sticks, okay, can I test and actually try out the martial art material? And I found, as I started really getting into my system, I understand that our system is very solid and can be applied in that type of venue. So just expanding on the aspect of basically testing our material. So back in 2009, I met Growling Dog Rene Kokolo because he hosted a camp. And that was the very first time I actually got to experience fighting, okay, live stick, minimal gear. Quite an adrenaline rush, okay, but in the same token, it actually kind of broke down a lot of the mystery around, because a lot of times they would say, well, you hit the person here and they're going to stop dead in their tracks. That's not necessarily true, depending on the situation, obviously. So one of the things that is very important to me, and that's a big thing that we push in the World Modern Arnis Alliance, is to actually spar and basically pressure test our material. So when you look at a lot of our base, we learn locks. We have to learn a specific lock in a certain way to get comfortable with how to apply the lock. But now we put 2 or 3 other people in the mix, and how can you do the locks without somebody else hitting you, slapping you, punching you? Try to apply it in a self-defense aspect. For a lot of our base drills, right, drills develop skills, is how can we use it in a sparring or stick dueling setting? So that's been my focus. So as a black belt, one of the things that I encourage my students to do after they have their core base is to train with other people. Maybe cross-train, do seminars, so that way you can enhance on what you do. And that's one of the things that sparring actually does. So one of the things that I've started doing quite a few years ago through the influence of actually doing dog brother gatherings in Ontario, we have events, cancer fundraisers that have a dog brother basically feel to them, where we actually do fights and get sponsors for, and then all the money goes to cancer research. So what we do is to take that material and test our material. So that's been my major focus. So like 2009, you're looking at almost 14 years now. So I've been testing our material in that type of venue. I feel our material is solid because I've been able to apply our core concepts in that random, aggressive setting where the person is not letting you do what you want to do. So one of the things our organization, we always try to give back to the community, okay, as part of our martial arts. So one of the things in Ontario that was started through basically that dog brother event that I attended in 2009, Rene Kokolo, a growling dog, started an event called Beat the Crap Out of Cancer. So what Beat the Crap Out of Cancer is to give people exposure to dog brother gatherings and that type of fighting, but at the same time we're giving back to the community and the people by actually raising money for cancer awareness and cancer research. Beat the Crap Out of Cancer in Ontario ran for 10 years, and we raised, I think it was close to $80,000 basically for that. And so one of the things that some other groups did, and including myself, is we started our own event piggybacking on that theme, because my school has always been very big on helping out local charities, and one of my students actually had a personal her daughter was actually born with cancer, so I felt it very important to kind of basically give back to that. So we started Stick It to Cancer in Sudbury, Ontario, through my school, Sudbury School of Martial Arts. So it ran 3 years, short hiatus. We'll be having another one again this year in the fall. And talking with Datu Tim, we want to make this a World Modern Arnis Alliance event where each of the schools and all the areas throughout the US, Canada, and elsewhere can actually have a fighting event, raise a little bit of money, and actually donate money to the local charities to help the community, and at the same token, raise awareness for what we do as an art. Well, Brazil, this has been an incredible trip. Our host has been amazing, showing us all the areas, the culture, the beauty of this place. Sharing and teaching Modern Arnis and the art has been incredible, and hopefully I'll have an opportunity in the very near future to come back.
Yeah, Brazil, we've had a blast here. I want to thank Professor Talas for having us down. I want to thank BudoTV for giving us this opportunity to share our message. This is such a beautiful country. Like I said, this is the 18th country I've taught martial arts in, and I love coming to South America. It's a blast. The people are very cool and welcoming, and hopefully we'll be coming back in the future. So, thanks for stopping by, and thank you, BudoTV.